Hi everybody. The topic of the today's lab is, again, we're going to continue with the GI system, gastrointestinal system, and today we're going to look at the oral cavity and the structures that are present in the contents of the oral cavity and the oropharynx. First, we're going to look at the model, all right, and after we finish looking at, we have like a couple of models that we're going to look at concerning the oral cavity and the palate and the associated areas. And after we finish the model, we're going to look at the cadaver and the things that we can see in the cadaver. So we're going to look at that in detail too. Okay, so let's get started then. Okay, hi everybody. So we're going to look at the oral cavity on the model. So this is the mouth, as you can see, and this is the oral cavity proper. And so basically in the oral region, or the mouth region, so what do we see? We see this cavity here, we see the teeth and the gingiva, we see the cheeks, we see the tongue, and then we see the hard palate. So all these structures basically what we see make up the oral area. Okay, so the main functions of the mouth, to be more precisely, the mouth is this is the first area of where digestion occurs, and you have a variety of functions of the mouth, like chewing, voluntary movements, the taste, the speaking, and all those stuff. So this is the mouth. Okay, so that's the function of the mouth. So what do we see here? Basically, we see two important areas that make up this area. And the anterior part, we have the oral vestibule, and the posterior area here is the oral cavity proper. So basically, the oral cavity divides into the vestibule anteriorly and the posteriorly. Well, be in front of the teeth, the alveolar arch. This is the alveolar arch. Okay, this is the upper jaw and this is the lower jaw. So in front of the teeth, the upper jaw, between the teeth and the lips, as you can see here, on the anterior aspect is the oral vestibule, and if you go towards the sides, it's between the teeth, the gums, and the cheek. On lateral side, again, so that's part of the oral vestibule. Okay, and in between these arches, okay, upper arch and lower arch, the upper jaw and lower jaw, in between these two is the oral cavity proper, because this is the oral cavity proper. And then we have the oral vestibule and oral cavity proper basically continues with each other after the third molar teeth. So this is the third molar behind that. So these two cavities basically are continuous with each other. Okay. One other thing in that. So on lateral, we look at the oral vestibule laterally, okay. So we see the teeth, the gums, okay, the gingiva, and the cheek, okay, here. So the cheek basically medially inside, it's basically composed of mucosa, and then outside it's basically covered by the skin. In between we have the what we call as the buccinator muscle, okay, that make up the cheek, okay, the buccinator muscle. So at the upper second molar teeth, at the level of the upper second molar teeth, we don't see it here, but we have the parotid papillae, where the duct, the Wharton's duct, the parotid duct, the parotid gland duct basically opens to the what we call as the papillae or parotid papillae that is located at the level of the upper second molar teeth at the oral vestibule. Okay, so basically the mouth here, this is the oral fissure in between the lips anteriorly, and posteriorly basically is bounded by the oropharyngeal isthmus. Okay, and oropharyngeal isthmus is basically the anterior border of the oropharyngeal isthmus is the palatoglossal fold. So going through the oropharyngeal isthmus, you would enter the oropharynx. Okay. So the upper boundary here is the hard palate and the soft palate, the palate, and the lower boundary of the oral cavity would be the myohyoid muscle, and I'll show you that in the next model. Okay, of this model, that's about it here. So let's look at the next model. Okay, I'm just taking this aside, and basically let's continue with this model here. Okay, so we're looking at this area. You can see this area, correct? All right. If we zoom in this area, we would see this is basically a sagittal section, all right, through the head, and we're basically looking at the oral area, the oral cavity, and the mouth area. So this is the lips, as you can see here, and this is the upper jaw and lower jaw, all right. And these are the tooth. Maybe it's at the midline. It might be the incisive or canine. It looks like the incisive teeth. So between the lips and incisive, here we have the oral vestibule at the front. Behind the teeth, the alveolar arches, both upper and lower. Okay, so this area is the oral cavity proper here. Okay, so one of the important structures that are located in the oral cavity proper is the tongue. This is the tongue here, all right. So basically, the anterior border of the mouth, of the oral region, is the oral fissure between the lips, and at the back, posteriorly, we have the oropharyngeal isthmus. Oropharyngeal isthmus opens to the oropharynx. So the anterior border of the oropharyngeal isthmus is this fold here, or arch, what we call as the palatoglossal arch. You see? So remember, we talked about these arches earlier. So this is the palatoglossal arch, and then we have the palatopharyngeal arch, or fold, or pilica, okay. And inside these folds, or pilicas, we have the same name muscles. We have the palatoglossal muscle, and we have the palatopharyngeal muscle. And in between these pilica or folds, we have the tonsil, we have the palatine tonsil located. So basically, this is part of the oropharynx. So this is the isthmus, what we call as the fauces. Okay, fauces is basically entrance to a hall. So this area is the oropharyngeal isthmus. This is the posterior boundary of the oral cavity proper. So basically, the superior boundary, as you can see, is the palate. Okay, this whole thing is palate. So from here to here, okay, this is the hard palate. You can feel it, it's hard, and it's composed of two bones. We have anteriorly, this bone here is the palatine process of maxilla. Posteriorly, so this is, if we divide this into 4 equal parts, like anterior 3/4 is basically composed of palatine process of maxilla. 1/4 posteriorly is formed by the horizontal plate of palatine bone. So this is palatine process of maxilla, and this is the horizontal plate of palatine bone, which makes up the hard palate, okay, the bony component. And at the back, at the posterior part of the palate, is composed of soft palate, and this basically soft palate is composed of connective tissue and muscles. And we have basically 4 muscles that are attached and associated with these the soft palate. We have the tensor, we have the levator palatine, levator palatine tensor, levator palatine muscle, and then we have the tensor palatine muscle. Okay, levator palatine, tensor palatine, and then we have the palatoglossus muscle. Okay, and then we have the musculus uvula, or uvular muscle. So we have 4 muscles that make up the soft palate. Okay, and then they're basically attached to a tendinous raphe inside the soft palate. So that's the soft palate. So this whole thing is the roof of the oral cavity. How about the floor of the oral cavity? So floor, if you go down all the way here, so this is the mandible here, and this is the hyoid. So we have the mylohyoid, okay, mylohyoid muscle that connects the inner part of the mandible, which is we have the mylohyoid line, and attaches to the hyoid bone. So this is the mylohyoid muscle, and makes up the floor of the oral cavity. So this whole thing is basically the tongue. Okay, we're going to look at the tongue in detail a bit later. And that is the content of the oral cavity. And by the way, so above the mylohyoid, what we have here, and this is the tongue, and tongue is basically composed of intrinsic and extrinsic muscles. So we have, in terms of the intrinsic muscle, we have the superior longitudinal, inferior longitudinal. So for instance, this is superior longitudinal muscle, this is the inferior longitudinal muscle, and we have the oblique and transverse muscles that make up. So this is superior longitudinal muscle. Inferior longitudinal is somewhere around here, and then we have the vertical and transverse. So basically, all these make up what we call as the intrinsic muscles. Above that, so this might be the epithelium. Okay, so this is the muscle here. Okay, and this could be, and it looks like a mucosa, right? It's 55 here. This is the mucosa. So this is the intrinsic muscle, and these guys here are the extrinsic muscles here. Okay, these are the extrinsic muscles. So in terms of, so we have in the intrinsic muscles, like I said, you have superior longitudinal, inferior longitudinal, vertical and transverse muscles. Okay, we can't really distinct that. And then we have extrinsic muscles, which are attached to the muscles, which are, so this is myohyoid, this is not included. Geniohyoid, this is also not included. Basically, these two muscles basically are located in the floor of the oral cavity. We have genioglossus. So this whole muscle here is genioglossus muscle here. So we have genioglossus, and then we have palatoglossus, styloglossus, and hyoglossus. Okay, hyoglossus is somewhere around here, but okay, we don't see it here. Okay, so we have this is genioglossus, by the way, this whole thing here. Okay. Okay, so this is genioglossus here. Genioglossus, this is hyoglossus. So this is from hyo to the gloss. Okay, yeah. This is genioglossus, hyoglossus. Okay, that's two. And then we have palatoglossus, and then we have styloglossus. Styloglossus, we don't see it. It comes from the styloid process and it attaches to the tongue. Okay, so let's repeat again. So the extrinsic tongue muscles are the genioglossus, hyoglossus, palatoglossus, which is located in the palatoglossal fold, and then we have styloglossus. Styloglossus comes from the styloid process and attached to the tongue. So those are the four extrinsic muscles. Okay, so as you can see, like I said, okay, that's about it there. So if you look, let's look at the tongue. Let's examine the tongue now. Okay, tongue, as you can see, it has a dorsal surface here, and it has a ventral surface. Okay, and this whole thing is a dorsal surface. So the tongue, we divide the tongue into anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3, remember? So this is the anterior 2/3, and this is the posterior 1/3. And then, so the division is basically formed by this sulcus terminalis. This is sulcus terminalis, okay, this area here. And then you have the foramen cecum, remember? Foramen cecum is a pit, is a foramen, but it's a pit. It's a remnant of the thyroglossal duct, okay, as you know. But it's not a real foramen, but it's, you know, it closes. So initially it was foramen, yes, but later on it just becomes a pit, okay? And that's the remnant of the thyroglossal duct. So that's the foramen cecum here, okay? And that area we see the sulcus terminalis. So sulcus terminalis basically bounds or demarcates the anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3. So from here to here, this is the anterior 2/3. From here backwards is posterior 1/3. Okay, so anterior 1/3, anterior 2/3, as you can see, it's part of the oral cavity. Okay, and basically this is the oral part of the tongue, and this is the posterior 1/3, and this is the pharyngeal part of the tongue. All right. Now the oral part of the tongue, the body, okay, or the corpus, we can call it the corpus, the oral part of the tongue, basically. It has these papillae. I'm not going to go into detail, but the lingual papillae, and however, the lingual papilla is absent in the pharyngeal 1/3 of the tongue. Okay, and this is basically primarily composed of the lingual tonsil. So this area, if I pin this area, you would have to say this is, to be more specific, this is a lingual tonsil. Okay, this is lingual tonsil, and again, it's part of the posterior 1/3 of the tongue, which is the pharyngeal part of the tongue, is primarily composed of the lingual, lymphoid follicles, and these are basically, the whole thing is called the lingual papilla. So we don't have, lingual tonsil. I'm sorry, lingual tonsil. So there's no lingual papilla in the pharyngeal part of the tongue. However, in the oral part of the tongue, you do have lingual papilla. We have the okay, so it's over there. I'll show you that later on. Okay, if we look at the tongue separately, okay, as you can see, this is the oral part, the anterior 2/3 of the anterior 2/3, the oral part, and then we have the posterior 1/3 is the pharyngeal part, and this is the sulcus terminalis, the inverted V shape. At the middle we have the foramen cecum over here. So in front of sulcus terminalis we have 8 to 12 on either side as a row. As you can see, it's rounded and it's really quite large. And these are the vallae papillae or circumvallae papillae. Okay. On the side we have the foliate papillae on the side, and the rest would be the fungiform. So it's basically scattered, the fungiform and filiform papilla. But don't forget that filiform papilla does not contain any taste buds, and that it's basically primarily involved in, it has a increased amount of nerve fibers, okay, sensory fibers, but it does not have any taste buds. Okay, so those are the so basically this area is the taste. Okay, this is the anteromedian sulcus here, the median sulcus of the tongue that divides the tongue into two halves. And what else do we have? Again, this anterior two-thirds is the taste is received by the chorda tympani and the facial branch of the facial nerve. The general sensation is received by the lingual nerve. However, there's an overlap of the circumvallate papillae. This is received by the glossopharyngeal nerve. However, so the area in the behind the sulcus terminalis, which is the posterior one-third, the pharyngeal part of the tongue, is the taste sensation is received by, well, basically both taste and general sensation is received by the glossopharyngeal nerve, cranial nerve number 9. Okay. However, like I said, the circumvallate sensation is received by the glossopharyngeal nerve, although it's located in front of the sulcus terminalis. So there's an overlap of the sensation of the glossopharyngeal nerve. So that's about it. This muscle here looks like the palatoglossus muscle, by the way. So it's one of the extrinsic muscles of the tongue, palatoglossus muscle that is located in the palatoglossus arch. So, okay, let's look at the, so this is the dorsal part of the tongue. Let's look at the ventral surface of the tongue, okay? So the ventral surface of the tongue, as you can, this is the ventral surface, by the way, okay? Ventral surface of the tongue is only located in the oral cavity proper, all right? So if we look at this area, as you can see here, this is the frenulum. What we see is the frenulum. So frenulum basically attaches the tongue to the floor of the oral cavity. This is the frenulum here. On either side of the frenulum, there's a really big opening, and that's called the sublingual foramen, or it's also referred to as the caruncle, sublingual caruncle. And that caruncle foramen at the submandibular duct. It's also referred to as the Wharton's duct. Opens to this area. Okay, so there's two submandibular foramen, sublingual foramen or sublingual caruncle that the Wharton ducts open. On either side, there's a fold. This is the sublingual fold, right? And inside the sublingual fold, we have what we call as the sublingual gland. And on top of these folds, opening those small openings, as you can see, I mean you can see it. All these, so there's ducts opens to these these areas, and basically through these areas it opens to this mucosa, to the surface of the mucosa, and basically these are the lingual nerve, and then we have the sublingual artery and vein, and this is the lingual nerve, by the way. Okay, so this is about it for here. Okay, we finished this. I'm just gonna put this aside. So let's look at this model here. Okay, in this model, all right. This is basically a this is the frontal section. Okay, a coronal section through the head. So it's like this way. That's the frontal section. Okay, what we see here is again the oral cavity. This is the tongue here. Okay, this is the oral cavity proper. And it's the hard palate. Okay, this is the hard palate composed of the bone. So basically, this hard palate, or the bony component, the maxillary and the palatine bone, basically forms the roof of the oral cavity, and also forms the floor of the nasal cavity. By the way, this is the nasal cavity. So okay, it divides the nasal cavity and oral cavity from each other. On either side, what we see, so this is part of the maxilla, the alveolar arches in the upper jaw. Here we see the mandible, and this is the lower the alveolar arches located in the mandible. So basically, we have the upper jaw and lower jaw, the maxilla and the mandible over here. So in between the teeth and the cheeks. Okay, so where's the cheeks? Okay, so the cheeks is somewhere around here. Okay. So, on the outer part, so this is the cheeks here. This is the buccinator muscle, by the way, here. So this is the oral vestibule here, okay? Yeah, this is the oral vestibule. And somewhere around here, maybe the upper third molar tooth level, that's where the parotid papillae, basically the duct, the Stensen's duct, or the duct of the parotid gland opens to that level of the upper second molar teeth here. So this is the oral vestibule here, and here's the oral cavity proper. Oral cavity proper is in between the alveolar arches between the teeth. And just look at from the outside. So this is the buccinator muscle, all right? And this is the masseter muscle. This is zygomatic bone, by the way. This is temporalis muscle here. So these two muscles are part of the muscles of mastication. And this is the temporal bone, okay? And so this is the zygomatic bone. So basically, this is the masseter, comes from the zygomatic bone, and basically attaches to the mandible. We can't see it. So this is the masseter muscle, buccinator muscle, okay? And they have parotid gland, basically moves along transverse on the superior surface of the masseter, and then pierces the buccinator, okay? Pierces the buccinator and opens to the oral vestibule at the upper second molar teeth level. Okay, so this is the buccinator muscle here. So let's look at this area here. On the outer side here, what we see, this is the skin. This is platysma, by the way. So this is part of the neck region. So the skin, platysma on both sides. And then here we have the anterior digastrics on both sides. And this is the submandibular gland. So submandibular gland is located in the submandibular fossa here. So this submandibular gland, anterior digastric. This muscle is the mylohyoid muscle on both sides. It attaches to the inner aspect of the mandible, as you can see, mylohyoid. Okay. Okay, so this muscle is genioid, and this is genioglossus. Genioglossus comes from the mandible and then attaches to the muscle proper itself. This is the sublingual gland. Okay, sublingual gland. Okay, that's about it here. Okay, so and this is the mucosa that covers the tongue. The mucosa, basically, the oral cavity is basically composed of stratified squamous epithelial keratinized. The only exception is non-keratinized. So most of the areas is non-keratinized, stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinized. The only keratinization that you would see is the dorsum of the tongue, except at the areas where you have the lingual papilla or the taste buds. So that's non-keratinized. But the rest of the tongue is keratinized. And then you have the hard palate is keratinized, and then we have the gingiva is also keratinized. Okay, so those three areas you have keratinization, but the rest of the oral cavity is basically mucosal or non-keratinized. Stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinized. So that's that. What else do we have here? Okay. Okay, so let's look at this area here. So we talked about the soft palate and then the muscles that make up the soft palate. Okay, this was a hard palate. We talked about the hard palate. Now in soft palate, okay. Let me show you this area here, and then I'm going to show you another model. So in this area we have this area is the nasopharynx, by the way. This is the torus tubaris, the opening of the pharyngotympanic tube, the Osseous tube. So we have two folds at the anterior, and then we have the posterior folds. Okay, and this is basically what we call as the salpingopharyngeal fold, and this is the salpingopalatine fold here. And salpingopharyngeal fold, we're not going to deal with that. So this is part of nasopharynx, and then you have the salpingopharyngeal muscle there. But in terms of that is closely associated with the soft palate, we have two muscles located beneath the salpingopalatine fold here. Okay, so we have the levator palatine muscle, superficially located, and beneath that we have the tensor palatine muscle. Okay, so levator palatine and tensor palatine basically attaches to the soft palate, and then we have the palatoglossus muscle here. So it comes from the palate and then goes to the glossus. So this is the palatoglossus. This is basically the palatoglossus fold, but inside this fold we have the palatoglossus muscle that make up the soft palate. And the fourth muscle that make up the soft palate is the musculus uvula or uvular muscle. So all these four muscles basically make up what we call as the soft palate. Okay. What else do we have here? I think that's about it here. Okay, so the muscles that make up the soft palate. So we can see these two muscles here, and this is part of the torus tubarius. So we have anterior protrusion, or the mucosal fold is salpingopalatine, and the posterior protrusion is the salpingopharyngeal, but we don't see these folds here. So beneath the salpingopalatine fold, we have two muscles. Okay, basically the fold is composed of levator veli palatini muscle, which is this muscle here. The deep muscle is tensor veli palatini. So tensor veli palatini basically does not contribute to the formation of the salpingopalatine arch, by the way. Okay, this is another information. So primarily the levator veli palatini forms the mucosal elevation, mucosal arch primarily. So we have two muscles. So we have the levator veli palatine and tensor veli palatine. Basically, they go and attach to the soft palate here. So this is the soft palate. Okay, and so those are the two muscles, and then we have the this muscle here. This is the palatoglossus muscle. Okay, the third muscle is the palatoglossus muscle, this muscle, and the fourth muscle here is musculus uvula, the uvular muscle here. So we have these four muscles basically contribute to the formation of the soft palate. So this is the palatoglossus arch, or inside this arch we have the muscle, palatoglossus muscle. Here we have the palatopharyngeal arch, by the way, and in between these two arches we have the palatine tonsil. This is the palatine tonsil here. Okay, so that's about it here. Okay, let's look at this model here, by the way, here. Okay, so I just wanted to show you here. So this is the posterior aspect of the tongue, the posterior 1/3, the pharyngeal part. Okay, what I wanted to show you here is the connection of the tongue, the posterior 1/3, to the epiglottis. So this is the medial glossoepiglottic fold, okay, that attaches to the epiglottis, and then we have the lateral, on the lateral side, lateral glossoepiglottic fold. In between that, we have what we call as a depression or fossa, what we call as the vallecula. So this is the vallecula. This is the median glossoepiglottic fold, lateral glossoepiglottic fold. There's two lateral glossoepiglottic fold, by the way. In between median and lateral glossoepiglottic fold is the depression or fossa, what we call as the vallecula. On either side of the orifice, this is the again the tonsil, okay, the palatine tonsil. Anterior to, we have the palatoglossal fold or palatoglossal muscle here, or arch, and then on the posterior side we have the palatopharyngeal arch or fold that contains the palatopharyngeal muscle. In between that we have the palatine tonsil, as you can see here on either side. Okay, so that's about it there. Okay, so let's look at the glands that we have. Okay, so this is the mandible. Okay, this is the mouth. Okay, if I get the mandible out on one side. Okay, so this is the inner aspect of the mandible. Okay, so we're gonna look at these areas here. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so what do we see here? So beneath that we have the mylohyoid muscles. You see, this is mylohyoid. This is geniohyoid, by the way. This is mylohyoid. So this is the hyoid bone, the inner aspect of the hyoid bone. So this is the sublingual gland, and this is submandibular gland. Basically, we have the mylohyoid line that demarcates between. So there's a fossa there, sublingual fossa. Below the mylohyoid line is the submandibular fossa, and then so both glands basically is present or situated in these fossae. So submandibular gland, as you can see, is deeper located. However, the in terms of in the mouth, the oral cavity, it's deeper located. But it's superficial to the surface. Okay, and one of the important aspect is that this muscle here, this is a mylohyoid muscle. Mylohyoid muscle basically divides the two parts of the submandibular gland. We have the superficial part or lobe, and then we have the deep part of the submandibular gland. That the submandibular gland is like a J-shaped gland, and it basically it hooks up and then divides the submandibular into two, superficial and deep. So it basically passes through here. So this is part of the submandibular. This is part of the mylohyoid muscle. So it attaches to the mylohyoid line of the inner aspect of the mandible. So this is the submandibular gland, and this is basically what we call the Wharton's duct. Okay, this is a mandibular duct. Okay, this is a mandibular sublingual gland. So there's one duct for the submandibular gland. However, there's many ducts, as you can see. There's many ducts of the sublingual gland, and that opens to the surface of this fold, sublingual fold, and it opens to the surface of this fold to the oral cavity proper. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so, and if I get this out of the way, what we see here, okay, so let's look at this here. I don't know if you can see it. Okay, this area here. Oh, let me get this out from. Okay, okay, it's better. Okay, let's look at this area here. Okay, so this is the internal aspect of the inner part of the jaw, lower jaw. So these are the nerves and the vessels that we see here. So this is basically related with where you have the submandibular gland. So this is like a most medial located. So we looked at this, okay, and then medial to the glands, what do we see? What do we see? We see this nerve. This yellow. This is a nerve, right? This is the lingual nerve, as you can see. Okay, this is the lingual nerve. Okay, and this is the hypoglossal nerve here. Okay, lingual nerve, hypoglossal nerve. So basically, these two are really close, anatomically related with the submandibular gland. By the way, okay. So lingual nerve, hypoglossal nerve, and these are the lingual artery and vein. This is the lingual artery, and this is the lingual vein. All right. So one of the important structures that we see here is this guy here again. This is sublingual ganglion. So sublingual ganglion, it has these preganglionic fibers. See, preganglionic fibers synapse with the postganglion. The postganglionic fibers basically goes to the submandibular gland. Okay, but however, there's sublingual gland round about somewhere around here. Okay, so the preganglionic fibers come in, they synapse. The postganglionic fibers goes out. So these are the roots of the submandibular ganglion. They come out. They join the lingual nerve and then go to the sublingual gland. All right. So basically, this is the lingual nerve. Okay, and lingual nerve basically carries the general sensation. It also carries the chorda tympani, the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers. They go in through these roots to the submandibular ganglion, and the postganglion fibers comes out and then goes to the submandibular gland. Some of the postganglionic fibers come out and they go backwards to these roots and then go. One of the anatomical relationship is, which is important, is that with the nerve, with the duct. As you can see, this is the lingual nerve, okay, and then you have the duct, the Wharton's duct, okay, the submandibular duct, and they curve around each other, okay, as you can see. So they have the very close anatomical relationship. This is the submandibular duct. It goes like this way in the front, and it opens to the sublingual caruncle, okay, or the opening, the foramen of the submandibular gland. Okay, here I think that's about it. One other thing, okay. Okay, so this is the posterior aspect of the pharynx. What we see here is the constrictors primarily. We have the superior constrictor, we have the middle constrictor, and we have the inferior constrictor. Okay, this is the medial pharyngeal raphe, and they basically attach to these raphe. The other thing that we see here is the muscles of part of the muscle of mastication on either side. This muscle here is the lateral pterygoid muscle. This muscle here is the medial pterygoid muscle. Okay, and what else do we see here? This is the masseter. All right, stretches out from the zygomatic bone to the mandible, masseter, and then we have temporalis muscle. Okay, so these four muscles are involved in mastication, and they are basically are referred to as muscles of mastication. Last thing that I want to show you is again the extrinsic muscle of the tongue. Okay, so this is the mandible here. I'm just going to take this out. All right. So the floor of the oral cavity, as you can see, it's formed by this muscle here. This mylohyoid, and the next muscle is geniohyoid. Okay, mylohyoid, geniohyoid. Geniohyoid muscle is important. Remember, we talked about this in detail in neuroblock, in that one of the tests for hypoglossal nerve lesion is to test the geniohyoid. So geniohyoid, one of the important functions of geniohyoid is to protrude the tongue forward. Okay, it protrudes the tongue forward, and if it's like lesions, then if both the right and left geniohyoid contracts, so you would have a protrusion of the tongue forward. But if it's like if one if it's like if one muscle contracts separately, then it would protrude and deviate to the other side. Okay, it will deviate to the contralateral side. So basically, I mean, so this is the important muscle to look at to see if there is a hypoglossal nerve lesion, and if there's a lesion, so the tongue will basically deviate to the lesion side. So that was my point. Anyhow, so this is mylohyoid, geniohyoid, and this is the genioglossus muscle. So genioglossus is one of the extrinsic muscles here. Okay, so genioglossus. This is genioglossus, and this is the hyoglossus here. Genioglossus, hyoglossus, and basically this is the styloglossus muscle. We have three muscles here that is basically part of the extrinsic muscles that moves the tongue. Okay, or enables to the contraction of the tongue. So genioglossus, hyoglossus, styloglossus, and then one additional muscle we have the palatoglossus, which comes from the palate. Okay, and then goes down, which is this muscle here, as you can see. So palatoglossus, as you can see, it's vertical. However, the styloglossus, as you can see, it's kind of oblique. Okay, come from the stylic process. It's kind of oblique. It has an oblique direction. However, palatoglossus has a vertical direction. So we have the palatoglossus. This is styloglossus, hyoglossus, and then this is the genioglossus that make up the extrinsic tongue muscles. Okay. Okay, so let's look at the teeth and the alveolar arches and the alveolar sulcus and the teeth itself. And this part here is the lower jaw. This part here is basically the two jaws are opened here. This represents the lower jaw and the mandible. This part here represents the upper jaw, the maxilla. So what we see here is, so if we divide the jaw into two halves, right and left. So what teeth do we see here? This is the central incisive, lateral incisive, canine. Okay, and then we have two premolars and three molars. Okay, so central incisive 1, and then we have lateral incisive, these 2, canine 3, 2 premolars, 4, 5, and then we have 3 molars, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8. So we divide this into two halves, or in a quarter, let's say a quarter. So we have 8 on the right side, 8 on the left side, that's 16. And then we have 16 in the upper jaw. So totally we have 32 teeth. Okay, this is basically, this is the amount of teeth is 32 in the adults, okay? So in the adults, there's the total amount of teeth is 32. In the newborn is 20. Total amount of teeth is 20. And these basically are referred to as the milky teeth, or is also referred to as the deciduous teeth. Okay, deciduous teeth is the milk teeth, and there's totally it's 20. So what in the newborn, the deciduous teeth is what? So it's one central incisive, lateral incisive. Okay, one canine. Now in the newborns, there's no premolars. Okay, there's no premolars, and there's only 2 molars. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 on this side, 5 on that side. It's 10, and then 10 in the upper jaw is 20. The total amount of deciduous teeth is 20. Okay, let's look at the teeth at another model. Okay, so this is the lower jaw. This is the upper jaw, the mandible. This is the maxilla. All right, so we have 16 teeth at the bottom, and then 16 teeth at the top. So total is 32, and a quarter of it's 8, 8. So 8 on the right, 8 on the left. Okay, 16, and 8 on the upper jaw on the right, and then 8 on the left, upper jaw on the left side. At 8, 8, 16, 16 is totally 32. So let's look at the lower jaw. Okay, again, so this is the central incisor. Okay, lateral incisor. This is canine. This is canine. This and then these 2 are premolar. Premolar, first molar, second molar, and third molar. Okay, that's 8. Okay. The other thing that I can show you on this model is that this nerve here, this is inferior alveolar nerve. Okay, inferior alveolar nerve, as you can see it over here. If you can see, this is the mandibular foramen here, passing through the mandible first, the inferior alveolar nerve. Okay. Inferior alveolar nerve is a branch with the mandibular division of trigeminal, and it goes through the alveolar canal, as you can see, and it gives off branches to to the root of each tooth, and basically supplies the and it gives off the sensory nerves to the root of the teeth. From here, it passes out. Okay, from here, it passes out through the mental foramen, forming the mental nerve. Okay, last model that I want to show you is this model here. Again, same things. We got the central incisor, lateral incisor. This is canine. We have 2 premolar here, and then we have 3. Normally we have 3 molars, right? First, second, third. The third molar is not shown here, and the third molar is also referred to as the wisdom tooth. Okay, the wisdom tooth. Okay, so it erupts after 20 years old, so you don't see it here. Okay, normally you have 3, but here you have 2, and that tooth is basically erupts after 20 years old. Here, this is okay, as you can see. Okay, I don't have to do that. So this is so inferior alveolar nerve goes through the mandibular canal, through the inferior alveolar canal. I'm sorry, it goes through the mandibular foramen. Okay, this is the mandibular foramen here, by the way, and it goes through the canal, and it gives off alveolar branches to all these teeth. Okay, and then comes out through this mental foramen. This is mental foramen, and then forms what we call as the mental nerve. Okay, and then supplies the lower chin. Okay, I think yeah, that's about it. Okay. Okay, so basically we finished the model part. So we looked at a lot of things. So we looked at the oral cavity, the hard palate, soft palate, the oropharynx, okay, and associated structures. And so I hope it was useful and you did understand everything. And now after this, we're going to look at the similar structures, the things that we can see on the cadavera. Okay, let's go to the cadavera now then.